Well, take a look at my pool deck. It really looks terrible. I just hate this pool deck because the mildew grows on it. Even when I pressure wash every 12 to 18 months, it just grows right back and the concrete will turn almost absolutely black. So I want to do something that's going to last much longer, give me several years between cleanings, and what I've came up with is a resurfacing the concrete. Transforming my pool deck from this to this. Amazing. So welcome to the channel. My name is Jack and I'm just a typical homeowner, but I'm really fed up with this and I've done my research. I've checked out the products and I think I've selected the best products for the money that I can use. And I'm going to take you step by step on resurfacing this pool deck and sealing the concrete in hopes of keeping it looking better for years and years to come. So what you have here is a series of 3 videos. It's going to take you from the start to the absolute finish on what you need to do, all of the products that's necessary, why I chose those products, how to apply them, and some tips along the way on making your work a little bit easier. And we'll do this together. So stick around and let's get this job done. The products I'll be using is this Behr Porch and Patio anti-slip porch paint, some of the Behr concrete bonding primer, the Rust-Oleum clean and etch for the concrete, and liquid concrete crack filler by DAP. You'll need some 3/8 inch rollers. You might want some paint tray liners. I've got some knee pads and of course a brush to do the outline painting of each section. Let's take a look at what the deck looks like before I do any work to it. As you can see, the concrete is almost black in certain spots, and that's just the mold that naturally grows as the concrete gets wet and the sun hits it, and it just grows everything. Now this is in Northwest Florida, and it'll get like this real quick. I'll have to come through and pressure wash this about every 2 years to keep it from looking absolutely black. You can see how spotty it is right in here where it was washed last time. But walking on through, I wanted to show you right here at the ladder the cracks in the concrete. First thing I'll do is pressure wash these cracks, get them cleaned out. Then we'll come back and I'll show you the filler in just a moment what I'll be using to fill those with. I'm trying to get just as deep as I can into those cracks to get any little vegetation growth out of there, to get the dirt out. Let's go in and get a closer look at these cracks now that they've been washed. I think I got all the loose debris out of there. You can see that the cracks are pretty significant up around these supports here that go in. I think what happened was the concrete didn't set up long enough before we started using the pool, when the pool was installed about 20 years ago. So if there's any loose concrete, pull that up. Now this product I'm using is good for cracks up to 1/2 inch. So I may be pressing the limit a little bit on that. So let's talk about the product. The product is this DAP liquid cement crack filler that I picked up from Lowe's. You can get this already pre-mixed in a container like this, or you can buy it in the sack and then mix your own up. If you're dealing with cracks over 1/2 inch in width, they recommend you get the dry mix and mix that up and use that. But this is what's called a self-leveling filler, which means you put this in your crack and it will level itself out. The instructions say to do it in 1/4 inch layers. So if you've got something more than a 1/4 inch deep, you'd put multiple layers and allow 24 hours for each layer to dry before you build the next layer on top. So I'm going to start off and put some of this down, and we'll see how it goes. The instructions say to shake it up real well, and if it's your temperature is cold, to soak this in a pan of hot water for about 10 minutes to get it loosened up. Well, it's about 85 to 88 degrees here, so I think it's plenty warm. I'm going to snip the end off. And once dry, this is supposed to match your concrete. I know concrete, as it ages, the color will change somewhat. Aside from being clean, the concrete should be dry. And this has been drying a few minutes here in the bright sun since I pressure washed it. Let's see how this does. On the smaller cracks, you have to use a trowel or some flat surface to force the filler down into the crack. And it just so happens that today I cannot find my trowel. So I'm going to improvise using this knife with a flat end to it. Some of these cracks are quite deep, so I'm going to just let them sit and see if this self-leveling compound will settle to the bottom of the crack. This is what it looks like after the first coat. And some of those cracks, as I mentioned before, are so deep it's going to take 3 or 4 layers to get them filled in. I'm going to let this dry till tomorrow and come back and put another layer in. Such a big change in color as that mildew and dirt comes up off the concrete. I use this wand for the tight spaces around the sides. I do have what's called a surface cleaner, which I'll come back and use in the open areas, and that makes it go so much faster doing that. And this is just the first step on cleaning the concrete. I'll come back with a concrete cleaner and etcher as the next step. Quite a difference in the color. The surface cleaner really makes a quick job of it. You sometimes have to go over it twice because it may leave some streaking if it goes too quickly. You can pick these up at Home Depot or Lowe's or even online if you're looking for one. And it just attaches right to your wand. And there's really no work at all to this. You're just dragging it along. If you miss a spot, you just back up and pick it up. The next step is to use this clean and etch product right here, which is going to do the final cleaning process on the concrete. And the etching is to rough up the concrete so that the top coat is going to bond to it a little bit better. The instruction says to brush it on and clean it in sections, about 10 by 10 foot sections. And when you're finished, the concrete should feel like 150 grit sandpaper. I'm mixing this 1-to-1. I'm going to start off with a small amount and not do the entire gallon at one time. You will need a stiff bristled brush, such as this one here. And I'm going to pour out some of the solution and scrub it in. And it should start a foaming process. Also a good time to mention about hazards of this. There's some chemicals in here like muriatic acid, and you should wear some kind of eye protection and try not to let it get on your skin. It doesn't have much of an odor to it. And quite honestly, I can't tell what it's doing. A gallon of this is supposed to cover 500 square feet, but I'm not so sure about that, unless I'm applying it a little too strong of a solution. All right. I'm going to rinse that down. And I'll do a test here and see what it feels like. That's a little bit rough. I think that started off rough anyway. Over this way, was it smoother? Okay, I think that's all right. So I'll go ahead and continue on around with this etching process. All done with the cleaning and the etching. That was a pretty easy process there. The trick is, according to the instructions, is do not let that solution dry on your concrete. And it will take a good bit of rinsing to get it all off. So I'm going to continue rinsing this for a while and get it ready for the next phase, which is going to be the prepping and priming. And that's going to be in part 2. So if you haven't subscribed to the series yet, go ahead and subscribe to my channel so you get notifications of the next videos coming up. These videos may be released over a period of time, so if you don't see the part 2 right away, subscribe and you'll get that notification when the part 2 is out. So I appreciate you watching, and stay tuned for the other parts. Take care.